Good morning, good afternoon, good evening, ladies and gentlemen. Wherever you are in the world today, I hope that you and your loved ones are doing great. Hope that all is blessing for you. And most importantly, I hope that you are in good health. Once again, welcome to the Common Sense channel. On this channel, we get to talk about those things that people know, that people have thought about, but don't often have the time to discuss. These, my friends, are the things we discuss here on the Common Sense channel. So once again, welcome to the Common Sense channel. There is a saying that those who do not learn from history will repeat them. Again, there's a saying that those who do not learn from history are bound to repeat them. So for today's topic, we're going to be looking at the world after 1945. Or if you want to go back, you can go back beyond, or we can look beyond 1945. But let's say for the discussion of our video today, let's begin from 1945. Again, those who do not learn from history are bound to repeat them. So today we're going to look at the world after 1945. And all of the things that we are seeing today are combination of the 1945, the era of the 1945, so to speak. So today I want to talk to you about everything that are happening, but specifically the era of 1945, after 1945. But we're going to be talking about we're going to talk about South America, we're going to talk about Africa in the context of what's happening in our world today. And we're going to be looking at something that I think a lot of people are missing in the storm of everything that are happening between the United States and Venezuela, and say most of South America. So we're going to look at history to understand what is happening now and how the whole process started and where we find ourselves today and where we're going to be heading. So I've been listening to various uh, commentation. I've been listening to some videos on YouTube. I've been listening to some analysts about the situation between America and Venezuela and some other countries that America is kind of threatening now to attack, especially this administration of President Trump. You know, like everyone, I'm not surprised because I knew exactly who Donald Trump would be from the beginning of his administration. I knew exactly, and I even did a video where I said, "Mr. Trump, I know who you are." In that video, if you want, you can go look back and you'll find the video and you'll find a receipt of me saying, so I'm not surprised, you know. But again, I will say this on this channel. Mr. Trump administration is the last administration that will fool the American people. The American people will never be fooled again. I don't think. This is my honest take on this. So I just want to do a little disclaimer for this video because there are things that I will say here that maybe they're not found in any history books, but they are the truth. So I don't want someone saying, oh, they're not factual, they're not this. But if you really want to understand, just do your research and you will know exactly what I'm saying and the angle from which I'm coming from as I do this video. Because like I say, I'm a lover of history and I love this country and some of the things that are happening in this country, especially now. I'm shocked like everyone else because Mr. Trump, President Trump, did not appear to be what he's doing now, because when he was campaigning, we all watch. I'm one of those people that is completely against war. I'm against imperialism. I'm against uh, colonialism. I'm against neocolonialism. And if anyone watching my videos, you know I mention these things all the time on my channel. You understand? So I'm completely against anything that has to do with any of those. You understand? So this is just a disclaimer, but I want to understand things. You have to go back to the genesis of that thing, which would be the history of everything that we're seeing today. You understand that it's happening with Donald Trump coining the term Donroe Doctrine, looking back into history and looking at James Monroe. Not everyone know who James Monroe is, but James Monroe was, the Monroe Doctrine was not even about what is being used for now, or the term that Donald Trump was able to put together, but no one, up to now, we don't know what it is, Donroe Doctrine. We don't know, but I just gonna do some analysis on it. Maybe I may be close, maybe I may not be close, but this is just my insight or take on what the Donroe Doctrine is. Because in order to understand these things, in order to understand why Donald Trump does what he do, you have to look at history. And it's the same thing happening in Russia today. And it's the same thing that happened in 1945 when Hitler tried to go into Russia, because he was able to go into most of those European countries, just bash into them and do whatever he wanted. But the big fish was Russia, you understand? So let's look at the Donroe, but let's look at history. There's a time in history after 19, before or after 1945, when America was the piggy bank. You know what a piggy bank is? It's where you get money that maybe you just want to save on the side, or maybe you don't really save, you just grab it whenever you need it. So that's what America was. America was the World Bank. At that time, they didn't have IMF. There was no IMF. America was the country that, in order for you to get a loan, you had to come to America and they had to put their signature. Say, for example, those countries that had colonies in Africa. I'll get to that, but let me just give you some idea of what America was like the World Bank. You understand? So it wasn't just third world countries that were seeking loans from America. There are other countries in Europe that were also seeking loans from America. America was like the IMF after 1945. And this is what most of these talking heads that you find on social media, on the news, traditional news, they're not talking about. They're just looking at the sentiment and the emotion. Donald Trump does not care about emotion. I'm going to say emotion don't shake Donald Trump. But to understand how the man think is to understand history. You understand? So you see most of South America, right? You see today. I'll never say Latin America on my channel because it's supposed to be, that's the appropriate way to say, to call the people that live down south, South Americans, not Latin Americans. It's more Eurocentric, and it's more imperialistic when you say Latin America. You're giving them the colonizer connection. We don't want to do that here. So when you look at South America after 1945, there are a lot of countries down there that were not in the beginning stage of development, but they were starting to come up as a country. To understand, a country does not function like a business. You're talking about an entire country that requires certain budget. So, and this country had resources. Maybe at that time they didn't have the mechanism to facilitate some of these resources they had. and America was in this hemispheres with all the money. America was loaded with money, you understand, and expertise. So countries like Cuba, countries like Venezuela, Chile, Ecuador, most of the South American countries, they reach out to America for money. And because they reach out to America for money, funds, America had demands. Just like, let me give you a typical example. Say you were trying to start a business, but you don't have funds. You wrote your business proposal, right? And you took it to the bank, right? So let's see as America as the bank. So, and you took it to the bank, but then the bank has conditions, right? That you must adhere to or that you must meet in order for you to get the loan. Understand? Now, the trick here is some of these leaders in South America were rotten to the core. They were so rotten and greedy, and they kept selling their countries. Places like Chile, Argentina, they had dictators. You understand? These people were selling their country. Basically, they were selling the future of their country. Most of these individuals are not alive today. You understand? But even though they are not alive, their children are alive. They were signing contracts with America for money. And sometimes, if America needed something done, America just called them and they just do it. Now, some of them became wiser because the demand of America and some of the contracts that they signed for these loans that they were taking, or for instance, in the case of Cuba, Cuba was basically little America. This is true. The government before Fidel Castro was rotten to the core. They were privileged, they were milking the country. And this is true. You can go back into history. You can read a history if you want to. On Cuba, you see that there were thousands of businesses. I don't want to exaggerate, but let's say thousands of businesses that literally move from the United States to Cuba and open all these franchises, these businesses, or whatever businesses you can think about was open in Cuba. You can make the case for Venezuela too, because the government of these countries sold the country out. And then these oligarchs, they were just fattening themselves. And meanwhile, the people, the ordinary people, were not living right. Them and the children were living greatly. You understand? The same can be made for Chile. The same can be made for Ecuador. The same can be made for Venezuela. The same can be made for most of these countries, even Brazil too, Argentina, all of them. If you don't believe me, go find a way to check on the debt of most of these countries, and you will see most of them are tied to the United States, because during that time, the only country that could guarantee a loan at that time, 1945, 46, 47, 48, 49, all the way down to the 60s, was the United States. And all of these loans came with debts. These loans were guaranteed by the United States, but they were owned by rich people, bankers. Some of you know them, you know their names. And these individuals, my friends, have not forgotten their money. They want their money back. So the Donroe Doctrine is literally a tax collector, a debt collector slash dominance. You understand? That's what the Donroe doctrine is. Donald Trump and James Monroe. So at this time in history, the James Monroe doctrine was to fend off the colonialists. That would be uh, the the British and anyone that had colonial values from this part of the world. That would be the Americas. So their intention was to get these people out of the Americas. Any colonial influence, they were trying to rid them out of this part of the world. So that was the doctrine. You understand? So to mix that with today's in 2026 is a different ball game. But like I said, the Donroe doctrine has not been defined yet. It's just my insight looking into what it would entail. That's why I'm saying these things. So here's what happened after these dictators in South America had signed all these contracts, had opened up their countries, natural resource to America and her industrialist or capitalist, and then to come back and nationalize their country is through a blow to all of the investment that America had guaranteed on the behalf of the capitalist and the industrialist of this country or the world. You understand? So those people, they want their money back. Any president that come into this country for the past 20 to 30 years, this individual had always been in the background, pushing them towards doing something to address their investment, their infrastructure that they built in this country to get payback. Judge Bush didn't do it. He wanted to. Joe Biden didn't do it. He wanted to. Obama did not do it. He wanted to. But they were just smoke. They were just talking. Donald Trump, on the other hand, is part of the business class. And you know what business people do? Some of us live in this country, we know a businessman will get his money any way or form. He will get his money, or she will get her money. Even if it takes 10 years, that debt that you owe, you will pay. They can charge it off. They can sell the debt off to anyone, but at the end of the day, that money you owe, you will pay. Understand? This is about natural resources, oil, yes, but that can be a bargaining chip for Mr. Trump and his rich people that put him there to get their money back. In other words, the case is not over yet because they can go, I'm not saying maybe not, but Cuba could be next. And when Fidel Castro came to power, I want to talk about Fidel Castro first before I go to Hugo Chavez. When Fidel Castro came, he did not negotiate any contract. In fact, he squashed all of them. And there were billions of dollars investment that was wasted. So did Castro think. But business people don't see it that way. Industrialists don't see it that way. Capitalists do not see it that way. They want the money back. You understand? So they're waiting all these years for the right person, and they find the right person in Mr. Trump. The only thing is, Mr. Trump has let down a lot of people, including me. All the peace-loving people. I'm a peace-loving person. I don't like war. I don't like colonialism. I don't like neocolonialism. I don't like any form of imperialism, because I'm the byproduct of these things, so I understand them. So when Fidel Castro came, he did not negotiate with none of these people. He did not try to say, you know what, let's find a common ground. Whatever is it you've spent or lost in this country, I'm going to pay you back, and case closed. Business people, they're negotiator. They will negotiate price. Like if you can come and say, okay, well, you spend $4 million or $10 million building this industry here. How about we give you 6 million? Case closed. Do that. Move on. But Fidel Castro did not do that. He nationalized everything. All of the industries became nationalized. And that, my friend, became the problem for Cuba. Then came, because the oligarchs that were there, these were all puppets. And Fidel Castro knew that and said, we no puppet. We taking over, and we're going to make sure that the people of Cuba enjoy the natural resources, the wealth of this country. When Chavez came, because Chavez saw the living condition of the ordinary Venezuela, although people who were living during the time of the dictator there, or the puppet that was in Venezuela before Hugo Chavez, or the oligarchs that were in Venezuela before Hugo Chavez, they said Cuba was Venezuela was heaven on earth, but not everyone was enjoying the wealth of the country. That was the case Hugo Chavez made. So when he came to office, he nationalized everything that belonged to Venezuela. Now, all of those capitalists, all of those industrialists that had invested into Venezuela and then had their investment backed by the United States, had the same thing happen to them that happened to them in Cuba. So you see the problem, right? And these individuals, they never forget. No matter how long it takes, they'll get paid. They're like a bank. A bank, it operates that way. If you're reckless with their investment, they'll find a way to get their money from you. One way or the other, they'll get their money. So that's the case of these two countries. It's the same for all of them. So when Mr. Trump goes on national TV and says we own Venezuela, that's what he's talking about. He said we own the oil. That's what he's talking about. And it's not just debt in terms of monetary value. It's debt in terms of infrastructure in both countries, Venezuela and Cuba. These people built infrastructure in this country. I'm just telling you what the media is failing to discuss. That's what we're talking here. Because on the Common Sense channel, we try to look at we filter out some of the things. Because sometimes they wouldn't say these things, some of them. Because, they just want to keep you emotionally upset. So that way the next party, the Democrat, has I don't know how to say it, has an upper hand. But at the end of the day, neither of these people, Democrat or the Republican, neither one of them are different. They're the same. But the only thing is Donald Trump is bold enough to show his true color. If you listen to Donald Trump, right, you can almost tell where he's going. But some people don't listen. They just listen to the noise. Like if you listen to him, he almost tell you what he's doing. And even all of his ambassadors, to hear his ambassador at this man representing America that has this rich culture on constitutionalism, which is what America is. It's a constitutional republic that based on set principles. You know, to see this man justifying on global TV imperialism, neocolonialism, that's a new low. Even the founding fathers who fought against colonialism, because that's what the whole and James Monroe doctrine was about. He was telling Britain and France, whatever they were at that time, this is our place, this is our backyard. We don't want you running anything over here. But today, he's the opposite. It's the opposite of that. But just to understand, in order for you to understand these things, you have to go back into history to understand. You understand? It's just like you, each of us, some of the mistakes that we make in life, we can sell the next generation in perpetual debt without even knowing. That's where America is going with all of the wars. Look at, we are at 38 trillions. That's debt owed to countries outside of America. That if those debts are not paid, you can put an entire generation in perpetual debt. We can be like Venezuela today. Some of the generation in Venezuela had no clue where all of this is coming from, but they are victim by way of the leadership that were in power during the early 50s, 60s, and 70s. They were just recklessly signing all these contracts. Some of them were taking loan on the country for their own personal needs. That goes for all the countries in South America. They were not taking loans. Maybe they'll go and say, want to build roads, want to build schools, want to do this. They would take these loans, and America would just write them, these loans. You understand? Although they say IMF, but America is the IMF. America has always been the World Bank. That's where everyone comes to get loan. If America does not sign off on a loan, you're not getting that loan. You understand? That goes for all of these countries. You understand? So that's the problem in South America today. So Donald Trump is like a tax collector. He is collecting all of this debt owed by these countries. And most of them belong to the industrialists, the capitalists, all those people that had financial investment in those countries before these countries were nationalized. If you don't believe this, you can do your research yourself. You'll see most of them, some of the debt this country owes, you can trace them back into the early 50s, 60s, and up to the 70s. So the sin of your ancestors is what plaguing the country today. I think maybe some 100 years from now, America could be in that same stage or same situation as Southern America countries or America's countries are today. Because with 38 trillions, we don't know what it's going to be, say, on some 50 to 60 years from now, what that debt is going to be. And that will be paid by each Americans that are coming up in this country. So you understand? So that's what the Donroe Doctrine is. Although, again, for educational purposes, they haven't clarified what it is. I mean, you research are just going to attribute to Donald Trump and James Monroe, but that's what I think it is. Donald Trump is going to make sure one way or the other, he's going to get paid. He's going to get those money, those infrastructure, even if he doesn't get the infrastructure, but it can make a deal. You understand? And I think that's what this country should have done in the first place. Once, say, for instance, when Fidel Castro had taken over, he could have called all those businesses that had businesses, those capitalists or industrialists or investors that had invested in Cuba, call them and say, hey, I know you open a sugarcane factory over here or oil refinery. What can we do to compensate you before we nationalize our industries? She could have done that to take away all the tension. That's why they have sanction on them. Sometimes you look at the sanction and say, well, it's too long now, but they still have the sanction on them. You understand? I don't know if it's going to be that easy for Donald Trump to go into Cuba. Cuba's system is way. I was surprised to see how what's his name, Maduro's went down so easily, but I don't know about Cuba. But again, nothing is impossible. Money can buy anything. That's the story of Venezuela. So yeah, so when we can look at South America today and see all of the elements of the prior era, the era of the 1945 all the way to the 1980s, and some when 1960s, no, 1960, 1970, 1980, because the moment when, because most of Venezuelan, if you even based on clips that I've been watching, when they talk of their national hero, they are not even including the previous dictators that were there. They just focus on Simon Bolivar, I think, and Hugo Chavez and Maduro. That's who they focus on. And then if you look at Cuba, you see the same thing with Fidel Castro and Raul Castro now. I think there's another guy there, but they're all Castro. So you see, so they look at these people as the people that came and tried to change things. But there's always a past history to every country on this planet. So now let's look at Africa. Even though Africa was run by the colonialist, this was before independent, before the so-called independent. Most of these African countries were ran by colonialists. So whether it was the Belgian, the French, the British, the Spanish, the the English, whatever they were running Africa. These individuals, surprisingly, were writing contracts. They were taking money on these countries. But literally, they were selling out the countries, these countries in Africa. Typical example, Congo, the Belgian before independent were taking huge loans, educational purposes on the Congo. Where was the money coming from? Some of the money was coming from investors, bankers, and some of the monies were coming from the United States. The Congolese people had no clue. The people in Nigeria, the people in South Africa, the people in Kenya, the people in Botswana, the people in Namibia, the people in Sierra Leone, the people in Liberia, the people in Guinea, Equatorial Guinea, the people in Senegal, wherever parts in Africa, wherever these people are controlling, the country had no idea. So, and this is true. For instance, Guinea, La Guinea, Conakry, when Sekou Touré took over Guinea, post-independent, the country was actually broke in debt. because France was just milking it, taking debt, taking loans. True, taking loans on the country. It's the same thing. It was happening in South America. The same case can be made for Southeast Asia too. Wherever these people went, they left something. They left so much debt for the next generation of Africans. That's why you see Africa is where they are today. If you check some of these people, their debt can be traced back to colonial era, and they still have to pay those debts. And the interest on those debts was so high that it would take maybe 5 to 6 generations to pay it off. That's why when Thomas Sankara came, he was advocating, and this is true now. I think that was the reason why they said, this boy right here, we need to get him out. He was talking about the African countries should not pay none of those debts because those debts were not accumulated by them. Those debts were accumulated by the colonialists. They were selling off the future of the African generation. That's where they are today. So when Donald Trump says, we own it, it's ours, that's what he's talking about. These people are in debt. So this is a lesson for the Sahel state to learn from. They cannot run away from France. And I don't think they should run away from France. What they need to do at this point is too early. They need to grow up the Sahel states, build it up to a point where it's stronger enough economically. Reach out to France. This is my own honest opinion. You don't have to take it. I'm just giving you the idea from mistakes that was made by the ancestors. Because banks will get their money. It's a debt and you must pay. And they will find whatever way to get that money. And some of these, like France, England, they guarantee these loans. You remember there's a time if your colony, like some of them that came up in the early countries like Gabon, the puppet ones, in order for them to get loan, those loans had to be guaranteed by the colonizer. So any president that comes into power or before they even ascend to office, they have to know that loan is there. So you can't break the ties. You can't say, oh, well, I'm free now. I'm Pan-Africanist, so I'm going to walk away from my debt. So I'm speaking to the Sahel state. I want you to think about this because, look, you got Russia now, you got China, you got all these people, North Korea, all of them coming into your country. They're coming in with investment. That can be a future problem too, should you decide to diversify. So whatever decision you're making with them too, it has to be something based on mutual understanding, and it has to be put down. It has to be drafted in a way that is more beneficial to you. That's my own intake on whatever is it you're doing with them. Or else maybe you're going to have these powers fighting in your country in the future. Maybe when you've gone, then that problem become a problem for the next generation. So you wouldn't want that. So, but my thing is, reach out to France. You owe France. They've guaranteed loan for that country. They've done something. Reach out to them and say, hey, let's do a deal. You don't have to, we're not going back to where we used to be, but whatever is it you've done, whatever is it the previous administration had done, had sold out the country to you in certain way to enrich themselves, we are willing to compensate for that. Because here's the reason why you should do that. So you can liberate your country. Gaddafi did that. Pay all your debt. Whatever you owe, pay them. That's what Gaddafi did. And that was wise. He nationalized his country. If you're going to nationalize your country's Sahel state, you want to pay all of your debt. You cannot be an independent country and in debt. Like those of us that live in this country in America, right? We know the significant, I won't say danger of owning a debt. We know you can't run away from it here. You understand? Because we live in a capitalistic society. So there's everything everywhere, but you can find a way to mitigate your debt. And that's what you need to do. Once you pay your debt, pay your debt. Don't run away from it. Because say you run away from it, how long you going to be around? These people, even if it take 10 generations, they're coming for the money, my friend, and you're going to pay. So the best you can do, Sahel state, whatever happened in Venezuela, that's just a precursor for what is to come. I'm not a fan of war. I'm not making a case for no one, but I'm just looking at history to understand what's happening now. You understand? For a president of the United States, this republic that base its values on the Constitution, to brazenly say, we own it, it's ours. Forget about the dominance, because you can always make the case for something called self-determination, which is part of the UN Charter. Someone can blast you for that, and that's what they've been doing to Mr. Trump all this time. But all these people sitting over there, they don't have no, like the UN, they call, I don't know why they, and I want to address this. I'll probably do a video on this. It's the hypocrisy of the United Nations to sit there and say, UN Security Council. Those individuals that were sitting making noise yesterday or 2 days ago, that's not that's it's the Security Council. But most of them, except Russia, China, right? America, no, let me exclude America from it. Russia, China, and which one again? That was it. All of those one, including the Somalian individual that was chairing that Security Council, these are all non-members. These are not the permanent members. So whatever they're doing, they're just making noise, as they always do. They call this meeting and just make noise, as if they're doing anything. That stuff really annoys me. When they're announcing this thing, they're supposed to say the non-members, the non-permanent members Security Council. So that way the whole world knows who is spearheading that stuff, that meeting. Because it's going to look like the Security Council is meeting and then you see a black man there. He has no veto power. A black country has no veto power, and you're sitting there blabbing, talking about morality, equality, self-determination, when they're not going to do anything. And they don't even have the veto power to do anything. If anything, they should be fighting to get into that permanent membership where they can have power to say no. And even if they do, what can they do? You understand? To see our country, the constitutional republic, to say we can do whatever we want to do. What can you do about it? That's a power that only the Almighty has. So that tells me, you know me, I don't believe that God has, the Almighty has anything to do with the affairs of men. I believe that. I'm like the founding fathers. I believe that the Almighty has nothing, absolutely nothing to do with the affairs of men. Men runs this earth, and men again. I'm going to say women for equality reasons, but men runs the affairs of this world. And men get to decide who controls. You get it? So yes, I just wanted to take a different spin, look at this from a different angles, And this is, like I said in my video, Donald Trump, Mr. Trump, Presidente of the United States of America, and the world police is actually ushering a new age in global affairs. I don't know where it's going, but it's not good. It doesn't look good at all. But yeah, when you hear Donroe Doctrine, Donald Trump is going to collect every penny any of these countries owed. This country, any of those countries. Now, here's my advice to any country in South America. I want you to go look into all of your agreements that you have. That would be those in the Caribbean. Anything your ancestors, your predecessors had done. If you're the prime minister of any country or president of any of those countries in South America, in the Caribbean, wherever you find yourself in that hemispheres, huh? As long in the backyard of America, go look at those contracts, revisit them, read them, double read them. If you don't understand them, get someone that understand them. If it's anything that you have to negotiate with America, do it. You got the right man in there. He's a dealer. He'll make a deal with you. But the people behind the scene are the bankers, man. The industrialists, the capitalists. They want their money back. And they want it fast. You got something they want, maybe you can negotiate with them. This you wouldn't hear on any media because they don't talk about this stuff. But here on the Common Sense channel, we talk about these things that no one wants to talk about, though they think about them, but they don't want to talk about them here. So do that. The reason why I think you should do that is to save the next generation. My heart goes out to all the innocent people, innocent lives that were lost in Venezuela. Those were not even necessary, but it happened. May their soul rest in peace. May the Almighty console their family, especially with everything that is happening now. You understand? But again, Mr. Trump surprised everyone. But I think this would be the last time the American people fall for this. Because when I heard Mr. Trump during the campaign, he said some terrible things about Joe Biden. He said some terrible things about Obama as far as war is concerned. He said some terrible things about George Bush on the lines of war. And to watch him going 4.0, that makes Joe Biden looks better. You know, that makes Obama look better. And that makes Mr. Bush look better. I hope that someday, I don't know how history is going to position Mr. Trump. But again, history is funny. It has a way of seeing things differently. Since I'm a lover of history, I'm going to say that and just leave it at that. But I know time will tell how history will judge Mr. Trump. But I know the American people are seeing, their eyes are open with time. Only time can tell. But my thing is, all of this country, whether you're in Africa, go back into your contracts, whatever deal you've had with with America, not Donald Trump, with America in the past, maybe in the 60s, in the 50s, in the 70s, in the 80s, in the 90s, including now. Revisit these contracts. Whatever you've done, if you ever tried to nationalize your country, make sure that you pay all of your debt. That's what Gaddafi did. You know, and that's why some of us, when we look at these things, we look back, we say they did Gaddafi dirty because he paid them. He paid all of his debt. And some of these countries haven't done that yet. Please go check your book. Check all of your contracts that you've had, especially those of you who have nationalized your resource, your natural resources, all of those goodies you have. It's a good thing to say whatever is in your country belong to your country. But if you sign contract with someone in the past, especially the United States, if you're taking loan that has direct connection to those resources, you want to visit that and make a deal. Make a deal quick. I'm not saying that Donald Trump is going to come to your country, but find a way to negotiate that stuff, because the people that put Donald Trump in there, they want their money, man. I'm telling you. Some of them will never see their faces. We'll never know them. Some of them will never know them. But these people don't forget. They don't forgive. They are not charities. They are not Father Christmas. They are business people. And the more their investment sits with you, the more the infrastructure sits with you, the more interest they're adding on. Understand? So I just pray that God, the Almighty, would continue to touch the hearts of these leaders, especially Mr. Trump, so he can just refrain from any act of violence. Again, we don't want to see any of that. I want to say this again about Venezuela and Maduro's wife. People are not talking about her, but that's the kind of woman you want to go down with. That's a strong woman right there. You know, that's a woman that says, if you're going to take my husband, you might as well take me too. Let me be with him. Whatever is going to happen to him, I want to be there. That's a strong woman. She's a strong woman. I don't care about what they say about her or anything like that. I just think she's a strong woman, and she just stand by her husband. In this country, there's something called due process. You understand? A man, and I want to say, I have to say it because it's a cliche. A man is innocent until proven guilty. At least that's what they say. But sometimes the pendulums can swing backward. Instead of forward, it can swing backward. So we're going to be watching you. Going to be watching everything you do. I hope they open up to the public. And if they do, we're going to be watching. So as I've always done on my videos, the greatest thing, my friends, that can happen to anyone, it's not the day you were born, not the day you graduated from high school, college, that you became a lawyer, doctor, and all of that good stuff. The greatest thing, my friend, that could ever happen to anyone is the day you discovered it yourself. Because from that day on, everything, absolutely everything, start to make sense, including understanding the Donroe Doctrine. It's a new one. Again, like I said, they have not really defined it yet. But I'm just trying to look at it from a different viewpoint or different angles, which is what we're supposed to do. Most of the people in this country, they don't listen well to Donald Trump. In my view, Donald Trump has not changed at all. When Donald Trump ran the first time, he told you what he was going to do. It's a continuation of what Donald Trump was doing in the first place. There's no way you can mega this country. There's no way you can MAGA this country without collecting the debt, without reaching out and getting whatever is owed to America. That's what he's doing. But if he has to use force, he'd do that. So you see the nature of Mr. Trump. I don't know again how history would define Mr. Trump, but time will tell. Time will tell. Every president that I have seen so far in this country have done something different. That's the legacy. And this, my friend, will be Mr. Trump's legacy. Yes, only time will tell. Again, I just want to say thanks to everyone, especially those who subscribe to my channel. Special thanks to you. Special thanks to all those people that watch my videos. On the Common Sense channel, I just look at things different. I look at all the cloudy, all the storm, all the noise, all the emotion, and then I just give it a different angle, you know, because that's what you're supposed to do. Nothing happened without a reason. For every action, there's opposite and equal reaction. There's always a beginning to everything. You understand? And it's the same thing that's happening in West Africa now, with France coming after uh, uh, um, the Sahel state or states. You know, although this is not, they're trying, this is not France, but it has to be. So my thing is to the Sahel state, please take it from me. Reach out to France and try to negotiate. Pay your debt. Just do it. It's the right thing to do. You save that, or you save the next generation from that wahala, as they call it, wahala. You understand? So do that. Don't be too big to do that. You don't have to do business with them as usual, but you can negotiate whatever is it, that contract the previous greedy government had signed with them. Make sure you fix that for the next generation. Like all the things that are happening to the beautiful people of Venezuela today, they shouldn't have to go through that. But previous administration, previous regime that have come before, Hugo Chavez, Maduro's, these people sold out the country to the oligarchs, to the capitalists, to the industrialists, and these people want their money back. Again, I hope that you, as always, hope that you and your family are doing great. I hope that all is pleasant for you. And most importantly, my friends, I pray and hope that you are in good health. Thank you, and have a pleasant day.